Welcome everybody. Welcome to Grit. Today you guys are going to be learning about grit in space. My name is Jen.
My name is Kennedy.
And my name is Samantha.
Okay, so I want everyone to take a second to stop and think so you guys can close your eyes, and I'm going to read you a quick question. So just in your heads, I want you to think about this. Have you ever wanted to give up on something because you originally failed? I'll read it one more time. Have you ever wanted to give up on something because you originally failed? And teachers, when everyone's ready, you can move on in the PowerPoint and pause this video.
So grit is working in order to conquer anything you face. People will continue to work hard and focus even if they experience failure. Grit is never giving up when faced with a tough challenge. You may experience a really difficult math problem, but you persevere through the difficulties and ask your teacher for extra help.
All right, so now I need all my friends to go ahead and close your eyes. And what we are going to do is a pulse check. So I'm going to read a couple of statements, and in your head, you can just think to yourself, do I do this? Or you can kind of reflect on it and just think about it. So I'll go ahead and read those. I am a hard worker. I never stop working to improve. I have goals that I will complete. I understand that failure is not the end.
So just to review what grit is. So grit is when you give it your all, you redo it if necessary, you ignore giving up, and you take your time to do it right. So grit is kind of climbing up that mountain when you're having a really bad day or a really big challenge. And even if you have all these setbacks, you're not going to give up and you're going to make it until you get to the top of that mountain.
So NASA shows grit all the time because NASA is not new to failure. Since 2010, SpaceX has been working to successfully launch and land reusable rockets. On the left, we have an example of an orbital rocket failing its landing. You can see how it falls and crashes. But on the right, we have a successful and safe landing. Every time a landing failed, they thought about what went wrong and how to fix it for next time. The lesson here is if you fall down 9 times, you get up 10.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to another example. So there was a spaceship called Mir 18, and there was an astronaut named Norman Thagard. His picture is right here. And he was exercising one day in space with these elastic bands. And astronauts need to exercise all the time to stay in shape because they have to do a lot of physical activity and a lot of physical movement when they're in space. So when he was exercising, a piece of the elastic, which is just really stretchy material, snapped and it went into his eye. So you guys can probably think about getting soap in your eye before and how much that hurt. So imagine that so much worse because it's a piece of elastic that got into his eye. So there was no like doctors that he could go to because he was in space, but they had someone on the space shuttle that could give him eye drops to help his eye, and he could be able to see better after he got the eye drops. So I will give you a few seconds to think about how you think that Norman showed grit. And you can pause the video if you need a few seconds to think and come back when you're ready. So he showed grit because he was able to persevere even though his eye really hurt and he couldn't see. So it might have took a few days for his eyesight to go back to how it used to be, but after a few days and the eye drops that he has, he was able to persevere and recover.
And so our last example that we're going to share with you today about a failure in space was through Apollo 13. So this was an example of grit because while astronauts were in space, an oxygen tank exploded while they were in space. So they had to figure out a way to fix the problem in order to make it back to Earth safely. So they had to work with the people at NASA who were on Earth, and they had to figure out a method. They had to figure out tools that they could use to fix the problem. And after many failures, they successfully fixed the oxygen tank, and the astronauts were able to come back to Earth safely. So this example, again, shows a lot of grit because if those people at NASA and the astronauts did not work together, and continue even after they experienced a lot of those failures, they wouldn't have made it back to Earth safely. And it shows that grit, if you work hard enough, you will get a successful result. So a question we just want you to take a moment and think about, you can go ahead and pause the video. Do you have enough grit to persevere in space? So what that means is, do you have enough energy and drive to be able to live in the conditions that space provides?
Okay, so I want you all to either pair up into small groups, and if you have no one to pair up with, if you're at home, that is okay. You do not need a partner for this activity, but it might make it a little bit easier to do. So I will give you a few seconds. You can pause this video if you would like while you form your small groups. Okay, perfect. So today we are going to show grit. And we are going to show grit by trying to find out the answers to riddles. So all these riddles have to do with space. So we will see how we do. I will give you a few seconds between each riddle, and then we'll come back for the answer. So your first question is, how do you get a baby astronaut to sleep? I'll read it one more time. How do you get a baby astronaut to sleep? So you can take a few seconds and pause the video if you would like, and then come back when you're ready for the answer. Okay, I think we're ready for the answer. So the answer is you rocket, like a space rocket that's pictured right here. How many of you got that? Give a thumbs up to your teacher if you got the answer right on that one. That one was a tricky one. All righty, let's move on to our next joke. Have you heard about the cow astronaut? I'll read it one more time. Have you heard about the cow astronaut? And you can take a few moments to figure this joke out and pause the video in the meantime to solve it. Okay, welcome back. Let's see if we got the answer correct. The answer is he landed on the moon, like a cow goes moo. So who got that one right? Give a thumbs up if you got that one right. All righty, our last joke. Let's see if we can get this. How do you organize a space party? I'll read it one more time. How do you organize a space party? So again, pause the video, take a few moments, and then come back when you're ready for the answer. So the answer is you plan it. Oh, like a planet that's over here. Give a thumbs up if you found those funny. Awesome job. Thank you, friends, for participating in that.
All right, so now that we just went over some of the jokes that we did, we're gonna reflect on them and relate it back to grit. So take a moment to think. You can turn and talk with a partner, or you can just reflect on it by yourself. Was it difficult trying to think of some of the answers to these riddles and jokes? So I know, especially when I read them for the first time, I had a really difficult time coming up with the answers to grit, or for the answers to the jokes. It was really tricky for me. But I related it back to grit, and I didn't give up. When I couldn't figure out the answer, I turned and talked to a neighbor, and I tried to get what they thought the answer might be. So I kept going, even though I might have failed the first time I was thinking of it. Another reflection question is, did you ever want to give up while thinking of the answers? So like I just mentioned before, a lot of times people, when they experience failure or they don't get the answer right away, they might give up instead of trying again. And our last question is, do you think people should persevere even if they encounter setbacks? Now, persevere is a really big word, but it just means that they are going to be determined and they're going to keep pushing forward, even if they experience a hard time or a setback. So you can go ahead and think about this with your group. You can pause the video if you want more discussion time, and come back after. So this all relates to grit, of being able to, even if you experience a failure, you're going to want to be able to push forward and keep going, because that's how a lot of things get done in this world, is you experience a failure and you keep going forward. So having grit is a really valuable character strength to have.
So by May 6th, you will be able to submit questions to the astronauts about their experiences in space. We have a couple of examples to ask, and you can think to yourself or with a friend, What would you ask to the astronauts up in space? We thought, what was the most difficult part of your training to become an astronaut? Have you ever had any challenges while in space? Have you ever had any failures during training? And did you have to move living locations to work for NASA? If so, how did that make you feel?
Alrighty. Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
coming. I hope you have a great rest of your week.